Hello, and welcome to the Paranormal Operator Podcast, where we talk about all manner of things that go bump in the night. Here, we discuss sightings, investigations, news, and popular media surrounding the paranormal, supernatural, and occult phenomena. So settle in as we search for the truth. I am your host, Adam, Operator 23. In today's episode, can Congress get to the bottom of UAPs? Did aliens abduct Malaysian Airlines Flight 370? Space weather. The paranormal survey I conducted at Medoc Mountain State Park earlier this year. A ghost story with a happy ending. 2 scientific articles about debunking paranormal activity and mediumship. And upcoming events. 3. Ufology News. Our first article comes from The Hill, entitled Bipartisan House Group Pushes for Select Committee Classified Hearings into UFOs, dated August 17th. The main point of the article kind of outlines the troubles representatives have been having while attempting to investigate government transparency surrounding UAPs. Here are several of the quotes from representatives voicing their input and concerns concerning the current UFO fervor. Representative Miskowitz said, quote, I hear from people more on this subject than anything else. Not the Trump indictments, not Hunter Biden. They are talking about the UAP hearing. End quote. Representative Burchett continues, quote, we're running into roadblocks. It just creates more and more conspiracy theories. And they'll, government agencies that is, just run out the clock. End quote. And according to Representative Luna, the reason that the Department of Defense has refused their use of a skiff, quote, is that Grush doesn't have an active security clearance, end quote. So, apparently, if he doesn't have the active security clearance, he can't then brief Congress on prior knowledge of classified information. Or at least that's what they're trying to argue. Now, on top of the DoD getting in the way, the group has reportedly not heard back from Speaker McCarthy concerning the formation of an actual UAP subcommittee. So, I feel, along with Representative Burchett, that if it doesn't happen now, with all the steam that's built up behind it, it probably isn't going to happen. Which would be a shame. Except that I can tell you, I told you so. Because I don't think they're going to admit it. I don't think it's going to happen. But I can still hope. I can also hope that y'all don't hear our neighbor's dog barking in the background. She's out there having a fit about something. In other news, a clip has been making the rounds, purportedly showing a commercial jet being abducted by 3 UFOs mid-flight. Most of the headlines that I've seen kind of point toward or suggest that this plane is the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Now, for those of you that don't remember, many years ago, there was a flight that just disappeared. We're not entirely sure what happened. I think they did finally find some wreckage, so they think something catastrophic happened, or maybe the pilot wanted to commit suicide. Although that doesn't really, I don't know. I've seen some documentaries. Well, I've seen a documentary on it. It's a whole can of worms. I don't know what happened to it, but I can say that according to WIONnews.com, this particular clip is fake. It has been making the rounds through the social medias. Apparently, it originated on a subreddit specifically for UFOs, and if I might be misunderstanding it, but it originally was from 2014. So it's old news, and it's fake. So those people were not abducted by aliens. I'm sure some of them maybe wish they had been, but that's not the case. Space weather. This from spaceweather.com. Solar activity, at least for the weekend, should be rather quiet. Even though we have a high number of sunspots, those sunspot groups are currently stable. They have stable magnetic fields, which should keep them from going off. So the weekend should be fine. And as far as near-Earth objects, we only have 4 this week, and none of them are going to be any closer than 8.2 lunar distances. So don't think we're going to get hit. However, interesting news, there is a new object in our solar system. And this time it's not a Oumuamua Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is actually a comet. We are fairly certain it is a comet. It was discovered, or at least the report of the discovery came in August 17th, and the discovery was made by an amateur Japanese astronomer. And here's a direct quote from spaceweather.com. Quote, Comet Nishimura C-2023 P1 is on a hyperbolic orbit from deep space. It hasn't been here before. Fresh comets are notoriously unpredictable. This one could brighten dramatically, or fall apart, or fizzle in the weeks ahead. End quote. So, what's it going to do? Where'd it come from? Well, don't really know. We know it came from outside of the solar system. It's on a hyperbolic orbit. So for those of you who remember taking algebra, hyperboles, arcs and whatnot, but we don't know what it's going to do. So it might be dazzling us as an actual visible object in the night sky, or it might simply just fall apart. That would be disappointing. So, meteor activity. According to the American Meteor Society, there are currently 2 active meteor showers. Quote, the estimated total hourly rates for evening observers this week should be near 4, as seen from mid-northern latitudes, and 3, as seen from tropical southern latitude locations. For morning observers, the estimated total hourly rates should be near 23 and 12 for northern latitudes and tropical southern locations, respectively. Evening rates are slightly reduced due to moonlight. The actual rates seen will depend on factors such as personal light and motion perception, local weather conditions, alertness, and experience in watching meteor activity. Note that the hourly rates listed below are estimates as viewed from dark sky sites away from urban light sources. Observers viewing from urban areas will see less activity, as only the brighter meteors will be visible from such locations. End quote. So if you want to go out looking, you'll have a decent chance of seeing a few. 12 per hour is not bad. Cryptozoology news. This week's Cryptid Section is brought to you by me. For those of you that follow me on social media, you may recall that I conducted a paranormal survey of Medoc Mountain State Park here in North Carolina a few months back. And, well, it occurred to me that I had posted the pictures and stuff, but I had never actually talked about it. So I'm going to be doing a write-up this weekend. It'll probably be out sometime tomorrow. And Yeah. So just so that we're on the same page, I have two tiers of what most people would call investigation. Okay, so I have the full-blown investigation, which is, all hands on deck. I got as much equipment there, as many meters and instruments as I could possibly get. All right, that's an investigation. A paranormal survey, on the other hand, is something lesser. So for this instance, I did a few small experiments. It was just me, and the only thing I had was a body cam, which didn't pick up anything. Well, as far as equipment, the only thing I had was a body cam, electronics. But at any rate, the trip, although I did not find Bigfoot, was not a complete waste of time. I had a pretty good time camping out, being unplugged. So basically, the big reveal, I guess you could say, if you haven't seen my social media, is that I did find 2 footprint-like impressions. One impression I found along a stream, you should call it a creek, and that one was actually fairly close to the campsite and the campground, that is. The other one was actually along the bank of the river. There's one really big river that runs through the park, and so there was one there. I took pictures of both of them. They're up on my social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll see if I can't bring them up here so you can see them. They're the one's really kind of hard to see. You have to be there to actually see it. But if you stare hard enough, maybe you'll be able to look. Maybe you'll be able to see it. So I was very happy. This is the first time I've ever actually went out looking for Bigfoot evidence of any kind, and then lo and behold, I find 2 impressions. Not that they're footprints, because they're not. They're footprint-like impressions. So, interesting, to say the least. Now, I was there for 3 nights, camped out, did some experiments. I hiked pretty much most of the trails. I didn't do any of the bridle trails, but I did I think I did all of the longer trails. And, well, I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I did some wood knocks. I did some whoops. And I also played my Native American flute, because I heard that could elicit responses. So, tried that while I was out there too. And the only thing I was able to accomplish was I broke my wood knocking stick, which I was kind of sad about, because it was a tire beater thing from a truck stop. And I think it was the second day, I laid into a tree and just broke it off at the handle. Subsequently, I did find out that with a walking stick, if you beat on a bridge or a footbridge, it does the same thing. So if you ever need to do that, it works pretty well. And it acts like a giant microphone or amplifier almost. So I did do that method as well. So I didn't come across anything. There was a couple times while I was out at night, it was dusk, and I thought I heard a couple of growls, but I couldn't see anything. Rather, I didn't see anything, not that I couldn't see anything. But I didn't see anything visually that could possibly be making them. My assumption is it was probably a vehicle of some sort that was off in the distance, like maybe a motorcycle, because it's right there by a highway, so I guess that's what it was. I don't know. I never saw an animal, but I definitely heard something. Was it a growl? I don't know. I thought it was a growl at the time, standing there in the darkness by myself. So, at any rate, that's what happened. And one more thing about Mount Medoc, or Medoc Mountain. So, there is a guy in Littleton, North Carolina, named Stephen Barcelo. You can follow him on YouTube. It's Stephen Barcelo, Barcelo. He has a cryptozoology and paranormal museum in Littleton, North Carolina, and he will occasionally go out there and do hunts, and he will film it and put it up on YouTube. In one of the videos, they reference a trash can because on a previous hunt, a guy caught audio. I think he had an audio recorder out in the woods long term, or he just left it out there for a while, and he heard some kind of metallic smacking sound. And their conclusion is that this trash can lid is what made that noise. And I have a picture of that too, you saw there. It looks like it was beaten with a really big hand. So, did Bigfoot do it? I wouldn't say that. It's always possible, I guess. But, yeah. It's pretty big, whatever did it. So, and I did also do some baiting with marshmallows, which didn't attract anything, not even raccoons, which I thought was extremely weird. Because just about every campground I've ever been to, there's like a marauding band of raccoons that raid people's campsites at night. But anyway, besides hearing dogs bark, that's it. I was really surprised at the amount of dogs around that place, so there was a lot of dogs barking. Right, outdoor safety. So whether you're going out into the field to investigate or to recreate, you always need to be prepared because you don't know if you're going to be able to make it out under your own steam or not. So this episode's outdoor safety tip is planning. Number 1, make sure you know where you are going and how to get there and back. Number 2, make sure someone else who's not going with you knows where you're going and when to expect you back. That way, if something does happen, they can send out the cavalry. Post-biology news. Today's ghost story is, it's rather astounding, to be honest. It comes from BigRapidsNews.com, entitled, Schoolteacher Stabbed by Ex-Boyfriend Says Ghosts Saved Her Life, and it is dated August 16th. Back in 2020, Eilish Poe was stabbed 16 times in the neck, arms, and torso by her ex-boyfriend. Assuming that the job was done, he left her, but unbeknownst to him, she was only playing dead. Apparently, she figured that if she quit fighting, he would just assume that he had done what he set out to do, and then be off. Which, luckily enough for her, he didn't stick around to make sure. So, he left. And while she was lying there bleeding out, 3 ghosts came to her. One was her grandmother, another was a longtime friend, and the third one, very strangely enough, was a woman who her ex-boyfriend had murdered. So, kind of a sketchy ex-boyfriend. I'm not sure what the situation is for this other person that he did successfully murder. At any rate, they came, they appeared, they helped her to sit up, and they assisted her in using her phone to call for help. After which, they all faded away without saying a word. So, very interesting, astounding. I'm sure that there's plenty of medical professionals out there who would simply say, well, she's dying, so her brain's going to come up with whatever it needs to stay alive. I could get behind that. The only thing is that the third woman, in the article it said that she barely knew this person. So, why would you think about someone that you barely know while you're laying there dying? But at any rate, she did live. She survived. She had to undergo 10 different surgeries to repair the damage. Now, that being said, the ex-boyfriend, you might be wondering, well, what happened to him? Well, he chose self-deletion off a cliff. So, he will not be killing any more people. Happy ending all the way around, I'd say. Science news. Well, you're probably aware of this, but the NASA report, it's still not out. But that's alright. I still found a couple of interesting articles nonetheless. This first one comes from BBC 3, of all places, entitled The Science Behind Seeing Ghosts, dated August 14th. The basic premise is that there are rational explanations for haunting and paranormal activity. And while I do not feel it can explain away the whole breadth of, the haunting spiritual activity that exists, it is something to keep in mind. It's, something handy that you might want to think about. Put it on your checklist when you're trying to debunk activity. Because, let us not forget, debunking it is our first job, besides comforting the living. So, what causes paranormal activity? Well, cause number one they propose is sleep paralysis and related hallucinations. And we've talked a little bit about sleep paralysis here on this channel. So, there is a moment in between phases of sleep where you're kind of awake, but you're not really awake. Your body is still in sleep mode, but your brain's like, hey, I'm awake. But you can't move because your body, that area of your brain still thinks you're asleep, and if you get up and move, you might hurt yourself. People who sleepwalk, this area of the brain malfunctions. And sleep paralysis is actually fairly common. Hallucinations, however, are not as common when it comes to sleep paralysis. So, it's a very interesting concept, and it's what a lot of people point to when they talk about alien abductions. I can say that I've actually experienced sleep paralysis once. It was a very fleeting experience. I woke up and I couldn't move, but it was like a snap of the fingers, that long. But it happened to me. Alright, number 2 is mold. Interesting. So there seems to be a striking correlation between the presence of mold and the condition of a place being haunted. Molds have a hallucinatory effect and may induce fear, which is interesting. Because what is a mold? Well, it's a fungus. And, shrooms, right? They're hallucinogens. So, the logic follows. So, if you're tripping, or if you think you have hauntings going on, maybe you should check for mold. Number 3. Belief in the paranormal. Now, her logic here was, if you believe in the paranormal, that's going to make you more susceptible to suggestion. Kind of like pareidolia. If you're looking for a pattern, you're going to see the pattern. If I'm in a creepy house that I think is haunted and I hear footsteps or I hear creaky floorboards, I'm like, oh my god, it's a ghost! I could see people doing that, being really overzealous. So, that is a thing. However, there are also people who do not believe in the paranormal who still have paranormal experiences. So, maybe. Number 4 is hallucinations, which could be brought on by sleep deprivation, high stress, and high temperatures. So I can see sleep deprivation. I can kind of see high stress, but my God, how hot would it have to be for someone to hallucinate? Now, they didn't say mirage. I could see my mirage. No, they straight up said hallucination. And I wouldn't consider a mirage a hallucination because it's an exterior, stimulus. It's not coming from inside of you. But anyway, they put high temperatures, so I'm reading you high temperatures. Number 5 is context, which I think, if I read her correctly, she's kind of saying that it's observer bias or maybe suggestibility. Although we kind of already covered that by the person, belief in the paranormal, but it's written here again. Number 6 is ultrasound. Now, ultrasound is something that is very interesting, and I plan on looking into it quite a bit further. In fact, I am very interested in trying to figure out how I can detect infrasound, because it's very possible that if Bigfoot is real, that they might use infrasound. So I'm very interested in that. So apparently sounds that are around 19 hertz can cause you to see things. And basically what it is, the vibrations hit you, they make your eyes, or maybe the liquid in your eyes, vibrate, and so then you will see things, optical illusions, things that aren't actually there. So kind of a hallucinatory thing, not quite though. And lastly, number 7, we have EMF. So for those of you out there that don't know, high levels of electromagnetic fields, so like unshielded circuit breakers, unshielded wires, being too close to RF antennas or receivers, it will mess with your brain, because your brain's an electric circuit, and if there are high enough levels, it will interfere. It'll induce stress. It can induce panic. It can make you feel like someone's watching you. That's all fairly well documented. So, to conduct an experiment on these last 2 things, infrasound and EMF, an experiment was conducted. And basically what it was is they put people in this room and they subjected them to infrasound and or EMF. It didn't really say how many of each. This isn't a scientific study, but it's just an article that kind of glossed over it. They might have more information in somewhere on the page that I didn't see. At any rate, they said that people did come out reporting that they felt very unusual in the room when subjected to infrasound and EMF, and 8% reported feeling actual terror. So, that's interesting. She did, however, conclude the article by saying it really didn't matter if we told them, or rather, it didn't matter if we did the infrasound or if we subjected them to EMF, because as soon as you tell someone that something might happen, then they're gonna see it. It's gonna happen to them. They're gonna psych themselves up into feeling, quote unquote, unusual. So, interesting, very interesting. I'd like to see if I can't replicate that experiment. So, next article is from Psychology Today, entitled "Inexplicable Communication: The Surprising Scientific Evidence for Mediumship," dated August 13th. The article is an interesting read as it takes on a topic that a lot of people will just poo-poo and gives it some pretty firm scientific legs to stand on. So, many of you out there have probably heard of a double-blind study. Some college students might have heard of a triple-blind study, but most people probably haven't heard of a quadruple-blind study. Well, some of the mediums that they have done tests on have actually been put through a quadruple blind study. And the most remarkable thing about it was that they were able to reach a high level of accuracy on information that they shouldn't have known. Now, one study in particular, the Saraf M. et al. 2020 Anomalous Information Reception by Mediums, found that some mediums were scoring, quote, significantly higher than chance, end quote. So I'm sure you understand that you have a chance of being right. If you had a true or false test, right, you're probably going to, and you had no idea, you guessed on all the questions, you're probably going to walk away with a 50, right? So that's like chance. But these guys were, and ladies, were scoring well above that. It also lays out historical cases of mediums possessing knowledge and skill that they shouldn't have had. One particular example was of a chess enthusiast who got a chess grandmaster who was interested in parapsychology and was like, hey, I'll channel this other grandmaster who's been dead for a while, and then you can play him. Well, the living chess master did win, but what's interesting isn't that the one guy lost. The interesting thing is that, according to other grandmasters who were there to witness it, this amateur guy played at the level of grandmaster. Like, he apparently gave the other guy a run for his money. So that's kind of cool. So I'm not going to go over the whole article. Just I'm going to give you that tidbit. So there is scientific data out there to support the possibility that mediums are a thing, that we can communicate with people in the hereafter. So, just keep that in mind. And sure, there are charlatans out there. There are people who will take your money. When I was a kid, it was really big. I think it was, what was her face? Miss Cleo, maybe? Anyway, you could call. There was a hotline you could call, and they're accredited, certified, I don't know what they used, what word they used. Mediums would talk to you on the phone and without answering any questions or blah, 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 they'd give you a psychic reading over the phone. So it was probably a scam, but it's made enough money to be on TV, to have a commercial on TV. So it was a pretty big craze back in the day. But as this article says, quote, just as the fact that some doctors are quacks doesn't invalidate the whole medical profession, end quote. So we can't invalidate all mediums, right? And then they actually ended the article with something very similar. I can't remember his name. James Watson, I think is what it was. It was a very famous, one of the very famous early psychology people. I should know this. I studied psychology. Anyway, James. We'll call him James. He actually said something to the effect of, well, just, we can't say that all crows are black because there might not be. All we have to do is find one that's not black, and it disproves that all of them are. So, really cool, really poignant quote, fit right in. So, definitely give that a read. And of course, as always, links to all the articles are in the description below. Last thing for the day. Upcoming events. August. The 2023 Michigan Paranormal Convention will bring the biggest names in the paranormal industry to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan for the 13th time. August 24 through 26 in Sault Ste. Marie's Cudin Casinos Dreammakers Theater. Experts and television stars will be on hand to cover such topics as paranormal investigating, psychic powers, demonology, and ufology. And looking at their website, it looks like it is going to be set up to where they're individual classes or workshops rather than a panel of speakers. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're going to go to this. It also looks like you have to pay extra for the different workshops. So that's the Michigan Paranormal Convention. Who are they? Why are they here? What do they want? They have been with us for all of recorded history, yet we did not know them. They have interfered in ancient battles and surveil our modern warships. Their technology can shut down our nukes and outrun our fastest jets. They have reportedly killed, and they have healed. They kidnap us only to release us. Are they E.T., time travelers, interdimensionals, or something else? Most importantly, what do they want? Come and find out at Friend or Foe 2.0, the annual MUFON Symposium, which will be taking place August 24th through the 27th in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm going to be honest, if I didn't have to go home this week and then have a big event at work this weekend, that's where I would be. I would be in Cincinnati. Alright, September. Come join us this fall in beautiful historic Savannah, Georgia for a fun-filled paranormal weekend with special guests, lecturers, Q&As, crystals, vendors, haunted objects and oddities, chip, coffee, psychic medium, gallery readings, ghost tours, investigations, and more at the Haunted Savannah Paracon, September 15 and 16th. So the 16th is the main event, and there's going to be some kind of like pre-game social mixer thing going on the evening of the 15th. Celebrate the history and mystery of the Mothman at the world's only Mothman Festival held annually in downtown Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the hometown of Mothman himself. September 16th through the 17th. A family-friendly event with plenty of Mothman-themed things to do and see, including shopping and eating from the many festival vendors, TNT bus tours, Mothman hayride on Saturday. You can also listen to guest speakers who play a part in cryptozoology and get your photo with the famous Mothman statue. Visit the world's only Mothman Museum, visit the local shops and sites of Point Pleasant, and so much more. Festival admission is free, but some attractions throughout the festival have a fee for entry. And lastly, we have September 30th. It is National Ghost Hunting Day. So, fire up the K2 meter, head out somewhere and with a certain special someone, and see if you can find yourself some ghosts. If you're lucky enough to be around a reasonably large town, there's probably ghost tours somewhere nearby. I know if you're in Savannah, Ghosts and Gravestones provides a pretty good tour. And I know there's one, well, there's a couple, well, there's several in Savannah. But Ghosts and Gravestones is rather nice. I also used to work for them. That's why I'm saying that. But it is rather nice. And there's one in Gatlinburg. It's rather nice. It's a walking tour. So be prepared to do a little bit of walking. At any rate, folks, that's all we have for this week. I hope you like what you heard. If you did, then I would ask you to please comment, like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications, and all that stuff helps out the algorithm so the channel can be more discoverable. If you did not like what you heard, then I thank you for listening this long, and please leave feedback. Please leave feedback. I know there's a lot of people who are getting into the video and they're just leaving. And now saying this, it's dawning on me that those people aren't hearing this. So, never mind, I suppose. Anyway, you can follow us on Twitter at ParanormalOps223 and on Instagram and Rumble at ParanormalOperator23. And our website is up. You can check it out for updates ever so often. It also contains our reporting system. So if you want to report some paranormal activity of any kind, you can visit it. It's paranormaloperator23.com. And our email is paranormaloperator23@gmail.com. So until next time, folks, keep searching in the darkness.